Welcome to Copilots, the podcast where we watch not just the first episode of a show,
but also the second. Some shows don't have the best pilot episode, and giving it that second chance might just sway your mind.
Here, we take that second chance for you, and let you know our opinion on if a show is more than one shot.
I'm Justice. Alongside me is my co-pilot Josh. Now, let's get ready for takeoff. Your in-flight entertainment this time will be Impulsive. Impulsive? Impulse.
Impulsive is the podcast with Logan Paul.
Look, I just know they're both on YouTube.
Well, kind of. One of them requires a YouTube Premium subscription to watch all of.
I wish it was the worst one. I truly do.
Do you?
Yeah.
Do you wish that Logan Paul got paid more money to do his podcast?
He already makes way too much money anyways for the shit he does. It's negligible.
I think you're actually saying you want Logan Paul to be richer. You want him to have more money.
Maybe then he'll stop scamming his fans.
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not.
So, Impulse is a 2018 original series from YouTube Premium, which may have been at the time YouTube Red. I'm not for sure when the switch took place.
No idea. I forgot it was ever called YouTube Red.
Yeah.
Which is what they want, so, I mean, congratulations, YouTube.
Based off of the 2013 novel of the same name by Steven Gould.
Which also had a movie based off of the novel series.
Specifically, the movie is based off his first novel, Jumper, which was released in 1992.
Yes. And
the book, not the movie.
The movie came out in like 2007?
2008.
2008. I was about to say 2007, 2008. And this one, Impulse, is based off of the third book in the series.
Technically the fourth book in the series.
Oh.
Because it was Jumper, Reflex, Jumper, Griffin's Story, which was a dedicated novel to the backstory of the character from the 2008 film. It was not necessarily part of the actual written trilogy.
So it's not part of the series, it is part of the
quadrilogy, actually, because there's a fourth book from 2014.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was his, yeah.
Okay. It's additional material. I wouldn't necessarily call it part of the series.
That's fair.
Like how people don't call the Star Wars Holiday Special part of the series, but it is part of the canon, technically.
Man, his books all sound pretty good. Like, even the ones outside of the Jumper series.
Yeah, I should read them. I've wanted to for a long time. I just constantly forgot they had books.
In between Jumper and its sequel Reflex, he wrote a story called Wild Side, a novel called Wild Side, about a group of Texas high school graduates who find a hole into a parallel world that has been unspoiled by man and human-instigated extinctions. And then they proceed to start a business exploiting that world, because
that's what humans do.
Yeah.
Humans being humans, baby. Oh shit. Beautiful, untapped natural resources? Time to murder species and destroy planets.
Imagine, we just found a parallel world where humans have never instigated the extinction of a species, and none of the resources there have been exploited in any way, shape, or form.
Bro, I'm gonna eat a dodo. Apparently they were delicious. We ate them to extinction for a fucking reason.
Bruh, I just found all the oil fields all over again.
I'd like you to know, I would be legitimately disappointed if I did, eat a dodo bird in this weird world, and it was just subpar, because it's entirely possible. Hear me out. Sure, we have a lot of written documentation that they're fucking delicious and everything, but, people also, because most of the people who talked about it were, European, and a lot of the dishes, for normal people, weren't super great. They were fine, but not super
what you're
flavorful.
saying is white people can't season food?
Yeah, so, what if the dodo bird's actually just, mediocre at best? It's just on a base level and you fix it better than, some other shit, because
their natural diet pre-seasoned them, and white people were like,
yeah,
holy shit, guys.
Or they were a little fattier than chicken, and so when the bad cooking white people went to fix them, they didn't dry out as much. Legitimately would be kind of disappointed to eat a dodo bird and be like, I mean, it's fine, I guess. I went to another fucking world, a parallel dimension, to eat a fucking dodo bird because I heard such great things about them, and it's just alright. Do you know the amount of effort I put in this?
not that much effort in this scenario because they just found a hole into.
Yeah, but assuming it's like geographically like the same area.
Yeah, a hole in Texas leads to a hole in the Texas plains.
Yeah. The amount of effort it would get to where dodo birds are without having the technology to get there, I'd have to bring in the technology to get there. Like, that would be a pain in the ass.
I also know I called it the Texas plains, and most of Texas isn't actually considered plains anymore.
But it used to be.
But it's very important that we recognize that Texas plains used to be a thing before the Dust Bowl, which was caused by over-farming of the region, and did over I want to say 300 years of damage to the environment, but it might be way worse than that. I don't remember.
It absolutely fucked up the environment. So, yeah.
So it would have been plains. Anyways, we're talking about Impulse, which is based off the third book in the Jumper series, discounting that spinoff.
Yeah.
Again, 2018, YouTube Red, Premium.
And the show starts with a fight between... Well, it starts with a shot of an iceberg that we're zooming in on. And it looks like there's two guys struggling on the edge, and then they fall into the chilly Arctic or Antarctic waters. Mm-hmm. I don't know where this iceberg is.
Neither do I.
And then one of them breaks the surface, and it's Keegan-Michael Key.
And then suddenly they're on a subway, and so it's a bunch of water.
Yeah, because the other guy pops up and grabs him, and then we pop to a subway where water is just pouring into it.
And then they fight on the subway a little bit, and then they jump back to the iceberg. And if you have seen the movie Jumper, you're aware of what's going on here.
Yes.
At least one of these two men have the ability to jump.
Which is just, they have the ability to teleport. They have the ability to teleport.
Except jumping doesn't just teleport you, it teleports anything you're touching.
Mm-hmm. And when you're not very good with it, things around you.
Or you're specifically like...
rushing it or panicking.
Yeah.
The less control you have over it, the more things jump with you in a larger radius, basically. So they're struggling, and the guy who's not Keegan-Michael Key seems to be trying to get away when Keegan-Michael Key grabs a hold of him and they jump again. Mm-hmm. So at this point, it's very hard to tell who is the fucking jumper here.
Yes.
And they're back in the subway fighting, and now Keegan-Michael Key's character is the one trying to get away.
Yes.
And the other guy tackles him just as he gets outside of the subway, and they're back on the iceberg, which at that point, when I see one of them trying to run away and not jumping, and when they have the distance, I can realize Keegan-Michael Key is not the jumper.
Yeah, he cannot jump. He's trying to not be on an iceberg.
So I immediately understood the situation. Oh, because in the movie, classic way to get rid of people trying to fuck with you, you teleport them to somewhere where no one can get them, and then they stay there and die.
Yeah, like somewhere in the middle of a desert.
Or in a cave on the side of the Grand Canyon.
Or on an iceberg.
Mm-hmm. So he gets tackled back to an iceberg, and the other guy manages to roll away, and before Keegan-Michael Key can catch him, the guy jumps. So now Keegan-Michael Key is going to die on an iceberg.
Then we get the opening sequence.
Yes.
Which is nothing to write home about.
Not even, like, musically really anything. It has some, like, electrically, like, silver lines.
This might just be because we've been binging the Marvel Defenders verse. But it really feels like one of the openings for the Defenders series.
Kind of. Which would make sense. It came out during the time frame those shows coming out.
Yeah.
And it's still shorter than those. I would say the opening scene, opening credit, is probably less than 30 seconds. It's not long at all.
It's probably about 30 seconds.
Fair.
Yeah. It definitely has the same vibe as the Marvel's Defenderverse openings, which none of them are good. No. Daredevil, Punisher, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Defenders, none of them have good openings.
All of them remind me of the art style that Black Cells did for theirs, but not nearly as good or with nearly as good of music.
Black Cells, and also later Game of Thrones.
Money Heist?
Money Heist, yeah. Both of those shows had very simplistic openings, which feel like what the Daredevil series...
But they're meant to be artistic in their simplicity.
And the way they're very impressive. Mm-hmm. Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Punisher, Impulse are not impressive, and instead are all like computerly done. They might actually have actual artists working on it, but...
Yeah, but it is CGI rendered, and it's kind of noticeable. Daredevil's is probably the best of them, and even then it's alright.
Yeah. Anyways, we go from that opening, where we do get a title card, to a girl in a breathing mask.
A respirator.
Yeah, a respirator.
And not like a cheap respirator. It looks like a fairly heavy-duty respirator, so you would assume she uses it quite a bit.
Yeah, in 2 years when COVID hits, she's fine.
Oh, yeah. And she is shaking a can of spray paint, so.
Yes. This is Henry. She is our main character.
Her full name is Henrietta, but she only ever goes by Henry.
We then follow her as she rides her bike back to her house, which is somewhere in the countryside of New York. The state of, not the city. The city of New York does not have countryside.
I'd never picked up what state we were in.
It's New York.
Okay. Did they say that?
Maybe.
Did you Google?
I didn't Google. I'm not saying they said it, but like it may be knowledge I have from osmosis.
Okay. Yeah, I had no idea where it was. I was just like, Northern America.
So, if we're going to be straight up and honest with you, our passengers, in 2018, before this had 2 seasons, 7 years ago, Josh watched this show.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Watched the first season and try to hype it up for Justice and be like, hey, you should watch this. I have YouTube Prime. You can use my YouTube Prime. You can watch this show. And Justice was like, I'm not watching TV on YouTube. Are you stupid?
Yeah.
And in his defense, a lot of people said that in 2018, and that's why a lot of shows on YouTube Premium got canceled.
Fair. I was part of the problem.
You wouldn't have been part of the solution because you would have just been using my account.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I would have changed nothing, so it's fine.
But yeah, so I've watched it. It's been 7 years, and I didn't know there was a second season until we got into looking at this stuff. There is a second season.
Yes.
So I don't know if I know it from then or if I know it from like reading like Wikipedia because I glanced at the Wikipedia to get like the debut date and like the background information on Gould. So I don't know why I know it's in New York, but it is.
Okay. So then we cut to the morning where a girl in a bathroom is yelling at Henry to hurry up. She's going to make her late for school.
This is her not stepsister because
this is her mother's boyfriend's daughter.
Not stepsister is a quicker way to hammer that point home. But yeah.
And so Henry slowly clambers out of bed, heads to the bathroom, where she opens a medicine cabinet, which, by the way, why have we done away with medicine cabinets as a part of the U.S., like, design culture? They're so fucking useful. They don't look bad.
I have a theory.
Yeah?
Medicine cabinets started as an aspect of middle-class culture.
Yes.
And then became just a staple of, like, apartment building.
Yeah, which means they became considered poor.
And they became associated with lower classes and colored people.
Fair.
And so they disappeared because wealthy white Americans...
Racism?
Yeah, racism.
Racism and classism? Yeah, I'm
aware.
aware.
Racism and classism. That, like,
I'm just saying we should...
All classism in the United States is based in racism.
I'm aware.
But
what I'm saying is we shouldn't allow that to call it. They're so fucking useful.
I mean, it's like having, like, the little drops for razor blades. Why did those go away?
Because they were dangerous as fuck.
Only if you were ever going to tear that wall down.
Or if you put enough in there. Or depending on the layout of the wiring or the pipes...
Unlikely.
I mean, on the upside, they are a dangerous hazard for mice trying to live in your walls near your bathroom.
I just imagined
a mouse trying, like, walking behind the bathroom, like, counter and a razor blade just falling from the sky at them.
No, my imagination was more like a mouse version of the Saw movies and, you know, the needle pit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's razor blades and
now I'm imagining Mickey Mouse asking someone if they want to play a game.
No. Mickey's a nickname. Mickey's not your friend. His name is Michael Mouse. Fuck that guy.
Fair. I imagine Michael Mouse asking someone if they wanted to play a game.
You want to play a game? I can't do his voice.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you were talking about she was taking medicine?
Yeah, and the other girl comments on her taking so much meds, and they insult each other, and it doesn't feel friendly either.
Yeah.
Like, the other girl's like, you take more medicine than my grandmother, and Henry's just like, you dressed like mine.
Yeah. They go downstairs, ostensibly for breakfast.
Yes.
Henry's not hungry. Her mom's like, why aren't you hungry? And...
Well, first Henry asks if she can take her car out after school.
Mm-hmm.
And her mom's like, yeah, after I get back after work. And then Henry's like, can I take it out by myself? And then her mother replies with, no, we'll have to see what the doctor says before we can do that. Mm-hmm. So we know there's some reason she's not allowed to drive. And it's medically related, probably also associated with why she's taking medicine and stuff.
And then...
her mother's like, can you just eat your food?
And that's when the boyfriend, whose name is Mr. Hope...
Yes.
We later find out his first name is Thomas, but... Yeah. Thomas is like, oh, she's not hungry. She had a midnight snack.
What did we say about wasting food?
Yeah, and I had this conversation with Justice when we watched this episode. But, like, this first little bit of him being petty and, like, kind of like a rat, right? Like, he's just, like, trying to get his girlfriend's daughter in trouble, and it's like, man, this is a piece of shit. This is
just petty to be fucking petty.
Like, he's just doing this because he doesn't like her because she's not his daughter. And it's like, I grew up with this. I understand that this man's a garbage person.
And her reply is, I was going to finish it. And like, fair. Completely valid. Like, because she didn't finish it. That's why he knows. He's like, it's still out. She's like, I was going to finish it. And then she walks into like the little living room area and comes back out with a piece of bread with what looks like it might have mayo on it. And an unopened jar of mayo with a butter knife in it. And I am immediately...
You mean an unclosed jar of mayo?
Yes, sorry. An open jar of mayo with a butter knife sticking out. And I'm immediately like, oh, he's right. That is a waste of food. That egg-based product has been sitting out open in the living room all night.
So it immediately goes from, oh, this dude's a dick to, well...
He has a point.
Maybe I judged too harshly too quickly.
I have some biases, I'm not going to lie. I apologize, sir.
And
you
then,
have another chance here.
Then Jenna, the daughter of Thomas, is like, do I have to take her to school? Why do I always have to take her to school? Why can't she go to school, like, on the bus or something? And Thomas is like, hey, she's family.
Yeah. And
we do everything for family.
And then he opens a Corona and hands it to his daughter.
And he's like, now you gotta say grace.
And you better not be to school in any less than 5 fucking minutes. Get in the car and go. No. So Jenna has the conversation with her dad while Henry is in the kitchen with her mother. And her mother's just trying to be like, hey, like, things are going well here. Don't try to fuck it up. Like, try some, please. While Henry is pulling the butter knife out of the mayo, washing the butter knife off, and walking towards the fridge. Still doesn't have a lid for the mayo, and it seems like she's going to put it back in. We never see the conclusion of this. I hope that mayo was fucking thrown away.
No, it was put back in the fridge with no lid on it. In fact, actually the lid's still in the fridge because she's one of those people who takes the lid off something.
And leave it in?
And leaves the lid in the fridge while she uses it.
No, man. So then we cut to Jenna and Henry in the car on the way to school.
And they're kind of like being catty with each other, and then Henry's like, well, it doesn't matter.
I won't be around much longer anyways.
And Jenna's like, what do you mean? And Henry goes, well, my mom and I never really stay in one place for more than 6 months, and it's almost time.
Yeah, to which Jenna replies like, well, she's already beating my dad's record of relationships, basically. So both of these parents are shitty at relationships, it seems.
Then we get to the high school, and we have a very, like, music and pan across the parking lot.
We're showing that everyone else has friends, but she's a loner.
Basically, this is a CW show right now.
Yeah. And then there's one really weird camera choice, and I don't like it. So when we're focusing on her, it's a still camera. When we're focusing on everyone else in the parking lot, we pan across with a shaky cam. I don't like shaky cams, but that's a personal thing. It's fine. We see a jock jump out of his large blue truck, and when he hits the ground, we focus in on him a bit, and then we unsteady the camera and tilt it towards the right, and then back left as he walks. And it's like, why? What the fuck?
I don't think you don't like shaky cam. I think you don't like shaky cam in this usage.
I don't like shaky cam in most usages because they don't feel necessary and they feel like bad choices.
Horror movie chasing.
Horror movie chasings in general can work with shaky cams. Shaky cams have their place. Faux documentaries, fuck you. Don't do it. We already know it's not a real documentary. Just fucking use a steady cam. Weird, unnecessary shots. Why? Why?
So you're saying you don't like shaky cam in Cloverfield or the Blair Witch Project?
Those are fine because they are part of the thematic nature of it and are used for the horror purpose.
But you just said you don't like it in faux documentaries.
Yeah, faux low-budget documentary shows.
Okay.
I hate The Office and shows like it.
Does The Office use shaky cam?
Yes.
Okay.
For no fucking purpose. Other than the fact that it's supposed to be, because the show is ostensibly a low-budget documentary about this office place, right? So it has to be shaky cam? Fuck you.
So we jump through a couple different scenes with Henry at school real quick. In the hallway, the jock from the big truck hits on her and asks her out.
His name is Clay.
She rejects him for what she says is the 100th time.
10th time.
My bad.
And makes a joke about how for being a jock, he has a piss poor batting average. And he's just like, that's fine. I don't play baseball. And at least I play the game with heart. It's a fairly decent, like, little jokey exchange here. Obviously, it's not meant to be friendly jokey, but it is still a fun jokey.
We then cut to a pep rally where Clay is essentially being honored because he's the star player.
Mm-hmm.
Simultaneously, Henry is in a bathroom somewhere smoking weed instead.
Yep.
We then cut to class where Henry is asleep.
And the teacher is announcing people's grades out loud and apparently needs a response from them to acknowledge the fact that he said that he said their grade out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Because he says a student, Towns, got an A+, and the kid doesn't reply. And he keeps saying the name until this kid who we focus on now, who looked like he was visibly struggling to like not act in some manner.
We later find out he is autistic. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily the best portrayal of autism, but
it's not the worst I've seen either. It's TV autism. He stands up and he just starts talking about how someone stole his blue pen.
And this is where the teacher, Dr. Gibson, is like, you have a black pen, you have a red pen, you don't need a third pen, get over it.
Sit your ass down or I'll tape you to the chair.
Mm-hmm.
To which Henry then raises her head.
This exchange woke her up.
I don't know if she was entirely sleeping. She may have just been doing the whole, I am trying to sleep, also don't fuck with me type of situation.
Well.
Unclear. But she raises her head and goes, Shelley, why do we have to call you Dr. Gibson?
And she starts essentially antagonizing the teacher because he doesn't actually have a doctorate. He has a master's.
He went to the University of Cincinnati, which is where he says he got his doctorate from. And she's like, well, that's weird, though. They have all of their dissertations available online, and I can find the one for your master's. It's a rambly piece of shit, but where's the one for your doctorate? And he's just like, let's get to the office, starts yelling at her. And she's like, I'm just asking a question. Why are we supposed to call you doctor, Mr. Gibson? And then he grabs her and starts to try to drag her, and she's like, get your hands off me. Don't touch me, man.
And then she starts to have a seizure.
Yep. So he freaks out. Other students students go to help, and then he yells at them to sit down, and then he yells for someone to go get help.
And then while she is seizing, objects in the room begin to vibrate and move.
To which the only person that notices this is Towns, who is staring at his pins.
Thomas Towns?
Is that his name?
Maybe. Hold on. I actually have his full name somewhere. Boop, 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 boop.
I never caught his first name.
That
That is the thing.
His name is also Thomas, yes.
Okay. I never noticed that. That is the thing that the show does. It does not give people's character names often, which is fair. Like, in real life, I've mentioned this, I don't know if I've ever mentioned it on the podcast, but I've mentioned it to Josh before. Shows often overuse people's names, I would say.
I don't know what you mean, Justice. People always say each other's names whenever they talk to them.
Especially in a single-person conversation. People are constantly saying other people's names, right, Josh?
Yeah. Why would they not say their names? Like, what do you think about that, Justice?
You know, like, even when they're not presenting someone's, like, a question to someone or something, any moment they can slip in their person's name instead of saying, like, you, there's, like, Josh. Yeah. No, like, obviously that's not how people normally talk, but it is a thing we have in media for a shorthand just to give us, like, a framing reference and to help us memorize these characters.
Well, because media shows, TV, movies, etc., are not depictions of real life.
Mm-hmm.
They are instead a story told in a manner to depict the story.
Yes.
Which requires communicating information that would not need to be communicated in real life.
Yes. Yeah. And I think there's a fine line between overusing someone's name in conversations like that and underusing it.
I don't know what you mean, Justice.
And I think this show falls on the error of not using names enough, or at least not using names soon enough. Because there are so many characters on this who I don't have names for, and if they do say them, it's like once, very briefly, and quite a while after the introduction.
Do you know who the mean girl is? Do you know her name?
Patty.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah.
Anyways,
they said it when she was introduced.
This leads to Henry being taken to the hospital.
Yep.
Here we find out this is the third seizure she's had.
Mm-hmm. In 8 months.
And the doctor says he has to report this to the DMV now.
And she's like, wait. But the other doctor said, like, we could see, like, we didn't have to tell them. We could just, like, not, and I could keep my license.
And this doctor's like, you driving would be a menace for everybody.
And for yourself. That's a bad idea.
So instead, we're going to report this to the DMV.
And we're going to try to get your seizures under control.
If we get your seizures under control, in 3 years, you can reapply for your license.
Yeah. So as a, like, 16-year-old teenager, she is upset by this. Cars are freedom. If you don't have a car, you're not free.
Well, in America, it's kind of true.
Yeah.
We don't have a public transport system, and we no longer have an availability of third places for teenagers to spend time.
Yeah.
So really,
a car is most people's third place.
Yeah, it really is like the representation of freedom within the United States.
Yeah, I know. I'm aware of it, and I find it sickening, but yes, it's true. It's sickening for multiple reasons. Lack of public transit, elimination of third places, elimination of safe third places.
So then we cut to that night. Henry goes out tagging again.
Mm-hmm.
On her way back, she is caught by a cop, Deputy Hulse.
Whose name we don't get, I think, until episode 2.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I just added it to my notes in such a way that I have it. So Hulse takes her back home and then tells her mom and stepdad that
she's been caught tagging.
Which she hasn't been caught tagging.
No, she's been caught on her way home, but assumably the cop searched her for some reason.
We're not even sure if she was caught with spray paint.
Mm-hmm.
We're not even sure if she was caught with the mask.
Yeah. The only thing we do know is there's some spray paint in her hair.
And that spray paint, then the tags have been popping up.
Yeah. The cop is making a lot of assumptions.
Cop tells her mom and stepdad about the tagging, though. And she's like, look, if she pays a fine...
And makes a promise to never do it again.
She doesn't have to go to court.
I don't want to arrest anyone.
Because it is a felony. Mm-hmm. And, like, here's the thing, though. Knowing that, as far as we can tell, the cop has no proof.
Yeah.
This just seems like extortion.
Yeah.
Which is funny because Deputy Hulse is supposed to be the, like...
good cop.
The good, like, cop who is, like, by the book and, like, actually trying to solve crimes.
Mm-hmm. She also rolls up on Henry with no cause. Now, obviously, we don't know if this town has any curfew laws or not. Yeah. It's entirely possible, but with the fact that we don't know that, it seems that she performed a stop with no cause and then basically forced her to get in her car and then drove her home.
Mm-hmm.
All illegal, so.
Basically a cab, even in fiction.
Yeah.
So
her mother and Thomas are both obviously upset by this.
Yeah. And after this scene with the cop, Henry goes up to her room. Her mom essentially follows her. And
her mom's like, you're not even trying. Yeah. I'm really happy here. This feels like it could be home. This is a place I'm happy to come home to. And this is a guy I'm happy to come home to. Like, why can't you try?
And Henry's like, because this is the 5th time I've had this conversation with you.
We have this conversation every 6 months. And then her mom's like, well, it wasn't my fault we had to leave. I forget what she says.
Her mom is like, well, that's not fair. And Henry's like,
you're right. It's not fair. It's not fair to me.
It's literally fair for me to throw that at you because it's true. It's literally fair.
Like, you get in a relationship with a guy, things go south, and then I have to move to a new fucking town. And then her mom's like, well, what about, I don't remember where she says, we didn't have to leave there because of me. We left there because you stole a motorcycle. And then Henry throws back a time when they left because her mother had a piss poor relationship with a guy and they had to leave in the dead of the night because the guy was an abusive piece of shit. And her mom's like, well, your dad's not as good as you seem to think he is.
It's a total non sequitur as well.
Yeah, and Henry's like, I didn't fucking say anything about him. I didn't ask about him. I didn't mention him. I don't care.
They've stopped arguing.
Yeah.
Her mom has turned to leave. And then her mom turns around and goes, your dad's not as good of a person as you think he is.
Yeah. And Henry's like, yeah, I don't fucking know the guy. I didn't say anything about him. I didn't ask about him. This isn't, basically she's saying this isn't about him. You are now just trying to change the conversation because you feel like the bad guy. That is the situation that's going on here.
I think the really important thing we can take from this is just being an older person doesn't make you better at having like arguments or like actually communicating, because her mother's argument here is, nuh-uh, your dad sucks.
Yeah.
Which is roughly the same argument you could expect out of a second grader.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, we then cut to a place called Bill Boone Motors, where a truck with a bunch of cars on it, you know those trucks that have trailers with cars stacked on cars?
The semis with cars stacked on cars, which I assume everyone has the same thought. I might be wrong, but the vague thought of, I don't know, man. I think if the car I'm in could pull up alongside of it, and I could get on there. I know they keep the keys in the cars on a lot of those things, so I could just climb in, drive one of these cars off of here. It'd be fine. Not in the context of law or anything, just like, I have the ability to do it. I know I don't, but like, the thought always enters my brain. It'd just be fun to try. Is that just a me thought? Do you not have that? I think it's
just a you thing.
I just think it'd be fun to try. I blame action movies. Look, the media is corrupting our youth.
I don't know if you're considered youth anymore, Justice.
I've had this thought since I was a child, though, so it corrupted me when I was a youth.
So these cars are being dropped off at Bill Boone Motors, and as soon as they're being unloaded, they're immediately having panels and stuff pulled off of them to reveal drugs that have been hidden inside them.
Yep.
We also learned that Bill was supposed to get
2 trucks. He paid for 2 trucks.
But only got one because the second truck got stopped in Ottawa because the driver didn't have a passport.
He forgot his passport. He lost it. And we learned this from Bill Boone, the man in charge here, having an interaction with a goon with slick back hair and a leather jacket, who does reoccur and gets a name and is actually his son, but we don't get his name until later. We don't get the representation that he's his son until later. So he's just a goon, and it stays that way in my notes.
Do you know his son's name?
Lucas?
I think you're right.
Yeah, I think it said like second episode. But anyways, from there with Goon and Bill, we cut back to Henry in the morning exiting the house to see Thomas backing a car out of a barn. Mm-hmm. And she's like, what the fuck are you doing? And he's like, we're selling your car to pay for the fine.
And she's like, I was going to pay for the fine. I can make money without selling my car.
And he's like, nope, we made a decision. So then she runs in to have a conversation with her mother, which goes the same way. Nope, we've made a decision. You got to see that things have consequences. Ignoring the fact that she already can't drive the car. That's a consequence in and of itself from her seizures. And the only thing you're really doing is getting rid of the one thing that seems to be her emotional support that she has going through a major medical trauma.
I understand it from the parents' perspective.
Yeah.
She can't drive for at least 3 years.
Mm-hmm. And you have a fine to pay. But
there's a fine that needs paid. We don't need this extra car.
You don't just, like, in good parenting, you don't just make the decision that night without talking to them first. Like, present options, because even if the car can be sold, like, you present options to the child when they're at an age like this.
No, actually...
Or at least talk it over with them.
Actually, just what you do is you wait till they're away at college.
And then you sell your car.
To a neighbor for, like, less than a third of what the car's worth. Mm-hmm. And then never give any of that money to the child in question.
Mm-hmm. And not to pay a fine or anything, just because you can.
Yeah.
Yep. So then we're with Jenna and Henry in Jenna's car on the way to school.
And Jenna starts rubbing it in her face that she has a car and that she can drive. She's like, you know what the worst part about this car is? Nothing.
And Henry's like, I don't know why you're so glib. This just means you're my chauffeur for the rest of the year. And to that, Jenna doesn't really say anything. Her face loses the smile and she kind of just faces forward and drives. So then we get to school and we see Henry messing with her locker and she notices Jenna with her friends talking, and one of her friends, Patty, whose name we get like almost immediately here, is talking about that too. She just got her friends are scandalized, her mother's going to be scandalized, and Patty's like, yeah, I don't know, it looks like ancient or something, like an ancient design or something. I think it might be Chinese. We
also learned during this scene that Patty formerly dated Clay Boone, who is the son of Bill Boone, who is the athlete that was hitting on Henry earlier in this episode.
And we learned this because apparently he hooked up with some chick this past weekend.
Mm-hmm. The boy from Henry's class, Thomas Towns,
and Henry are in detention together, and he is talking about how he thinks her seizures make her... Well, he's asking about her seizures, and then he asks if she has a tumor, and she's like, I don't think so. He's like, man, I really wish you did have one. She's like, what? And he's like, tumors have been known to possibly show and cause psychic powers. And she's like, I'm not psychic.
Yeah. He's like, there's 4 types of seizures, and this one type of seizure caused by brain tumors has been known to make psychic
phenomena
occur, and that's what made the pins shake.
And she was like, your pins didn't move because I had a seizure. And she's like, yeah, it did.
We then cut to basketball practice, where Clay and some of his friends are trying to talk about girls while they practice, and the coach, who is Bill Boone, who is Clay's dad, is yelling at them the entire time.
Specifically at Clay for not being more aggressive and focusing more and driving the ball forward.
He is also talking to another man here who will later learn is the sheriff.
Yes.
About how one of their trucks didn't come in and that they're short on their drugs because the other truck got stopped at the border.
Yeah.
And then after practice...
hands the sheriff a piece of paper and the sheriff says he'll handle it.
Yeah. And then after practice, Bill slaps and is abusive to his son because Bill is an abusive sports dad.
Yes, because his son wasn't playing as aggressively as he wanted. His son was like, it's practice. His dad's like, you practice like you play. Henry seems to see this. We don't actually get confirmation of that, but we zoom out of that shot and then switch immediately to the inside of a school bus that Henry is looking out of. The media language says she saw.
Henry then gets home from detention, goes to take her bike out.
And that's been locked up. That is the consequences. The car should not be the consequences in that circumstance, or the bike should not be the consequences. You don't do double consequences, especially when you already are doing consequences and say that is the consequence, and then you add something on top of it. Fuck that. You either explain it all at once, or you don't fucking do 2 things like that.
Well, on top of it, it's not like they were open about selling the car. She only knows that they were...
because she caught them in the act.
Yeah, like, this is bad parenting all around.
Yep.
But...
communication is important in any relationship. Whether it's physical, romantic, fraternal, or parent-child. Communication, bitch.
So we go to school the next day. Henry approaches Clay, and she's like, I need to ask you a favor.
Yeah, and he's like, okay, sure. And all of his sports buddies with her, like, ribbing him because the girl he's been trying to ask out is not talking to him. So they go into an empty hallway, and she's like, I need a favor.
And he's like, yeah, what is it? And she's like, I want you to help me steal a car.
And he's like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Have you stolen a car before? And she's like, yeah.
And he's like, why do you need my help then? You're obviously the expert out of us.
And she's like, it's on your dad's lot. And then he's like, takes him on. He's like, and then he's pleased by it. And he's like, yeah, I can do that. Because his dad's a dick. So revenge. So after school, Clay sneaks into the office. Doesn't even have to sneak, but like walks his way into the office of Bill Boone Motors, gets the keys, and as he's rifling around looking for the pink slip, is caught by his older brother. He's like, what you doing?
And he's just like, I'm borrowing a car. He's like, that's why you're in the pink slips? Never mind, I don't want to know, and walks off.
Yeah. So then we see him walk back out, give the pink slip and the keys to Henry, and then we see Henry driving her car into what I thought was an RV camping spot, because everything here is an RV, but apparently it's a trailer park.
They're not all RVs. Like
they all looked like RVs from the top down glance, but then when we get more into the scene, I realized it wasn't.
Yeah. Before we cut to her driving into the trailer park, we get a scene at her house.
Oh yeah.
Where Thomas tells Cleo, who Cleo just got back from work.
And Cleo is her mother. We have not mentioned her name yet.
Thomas tells Henry's mother, Cleo, he's like, Henry never came home from school. I don't know where she is.
And then Jenna pipes in to be like, yeah, she also skipped detention.
Yeah. So then Henry hides the car in the trailer park, and then she gets back in the truck with Clay.
And then they start smoking some of that dank.
In my notes,
Zaza.
I will just proceed the way I wrote this.
Yeah.
They proceed to get high together. They talk a bit. They kiss a bit. Make out a bit. He attempts to force himself on her. She begs him to stop. He forces his hand under her clothes and down her pants. She then starts hitting him before she begins having another seizure. He freaks out.
An anxiety attack, then followed by a seizure.
He freaks out because she's having a seizure. He pushes himself away from her. And then
the car starts to crumble because she's about to jump.
Yeah, the truck shakes, the glass breaks, and she's gone.
Yep.
She appears in her room along with a car door.
Yeah.
A truck door.
And then her parents here, which there was a fun moment right before the RV bit when Mr. Hope, Thomas, and Cleo were talking. When Cleo's just sitting out at a table staring at the door, and he's like, what are you doing? She's like, she's not getting past me this time. Well, she got past her mother by, just appearing in her room. So they hear a giant fucking thump because Henry does not just appear in her room. She appears in the air above her bed along with a truck door.
Yes.
A bifurcated truck door.
Yes.
So
which both then have to obey the laws of gravity and fall onto the bed/ground.
Yeah. And when she appears, there's like forcing of air displacement.
Yes. That
fucks up part of the ceiling and the wall. But her parents hear this. Her mother calls. I say parents, but her mother calls up and she's like, yeah, no, it's me. And she's clearly rattled, trying to say something. When her mother walks up just after Henry managed to cover the truck door with blankets.
Mm-hmm.
And basically her mother's just like, what are you doing? And then notices the fucked up ceiling and wall. And she's like, should I expect cops?
Yeah, and Henry keeps trying to explain what happened, but she doesn't, have words for it to explain what happened. She has no idea how she went from being in Clay's truck to being in her room with a truck door.
And then as her mother finally stops trying to ask her questions or like mentioning cops and whatever, and it looks like Henry might be able to get a word in, Thomas walks up the stairs, and then Cleo immediately starts apologizing to him for the things her daughter did to the room. And that kind of ends the scene with everyone ignoring Henry, who is clearly distressed about something.
Yep. Henry then goes to Jenna later in the evening for help.
Well, she goes to borrow Jenna's car.
Yeah. She's like, I need your help. I need to borrow your car. And at the time, Jenna's on a
call with Patty,
a video
talking about
call.
a dress.
Yeah.
Yes. And Henry goes to just rifle through Jenna's purse to grab her keys. Jenna calls for her father, and then Henry's like stone-faced, looking Jenna dead in the eye. He's like, I need your help. So Jenna's like, realizes something serious is happening, and tells her father it was nothing. And then we cut to Henry's room, where Henry is explaining to Jenna what happened to the best she can.
Yeah. We then have Jenna and Clay in Jenna's car, driving to where Henry's truck is.
Jenna and Henry driving to Clay's truck.
Yeah, that's what I said, probably.
Yeah. At first in the room, though, Jenna doesn't really seem to be grasping what Henry's saying. She's just like, I don't know what you're going to about. And then Henry starts to talk about the sexual assault that happened. And Jenna immediately sobers up and is like, it doesn't matter that we have this friction. This is a fucked up thing to happen. Yes, I'm going to help you.
Yeah. And also, the part of the truck door is
in her room. She's like, that makes no fucking sense.
It's vaguely compelling evidence.
Yeah. So then they drive out to Clay's truck.
Yes. And when they get there, they see that Clay's truck is still there, and Henry gets out of the car to go check.
Tells Jenna to stay, but obviously she doesn't.
And Clay is also still in the truck, and he is fucked up by having a truck kind of caved in around him.
Yes. We don't see it, but Henry does, screams, steps away, drags Jenna away from it before Jenna can see anything, pulls out her phone and calls 911 to report the accident. And that's after she grabs her bag from the back of his truck, so no one knows she's still there.
And then we cut to the scene of the accident. We cut back to Clay's truck, but now there's a wrecker there and police. And the police are trying to figure out what happened. They're like, well, there's no paint, so like it's not another car that hit it.
And there's this drunk guy. She's like, it's a deer. I swear I've seen deer do this before.
It's the tow truck operator, because he has a beer in his hand, and Deputy Holst is like, can't be drinking. This is a crime scene.
Yeah. You're like, it's a deer. I swear I've seen deer do things like this before.
And then one of the cops is like, well, if it's a deer, did they run off with the door? Because where the fuck's the door?
Yeah. Basically, they conclude something happened. We don't know.
So Clay is hospitalized.
He's in a coma with a breathing tube shoved down his throat.
We get Bill looking into the room through a glass window. You know, all hospital rooms in TV have glass windows.
I mean, Clay's in an entire glass room.
Yeah, that's fair.
So Bill's important first question to ask the doctor is if his son will ever play sports again. And the doctor's like, he's lucky to be alive, but his spine has been severed.
Yeah, so probably not. Probably not playing sports again.
And then Bill asks no more questions and walks away, and that's the end of our scene here.
Yeah, so the cops then arrest a guy. You have his name, I don't.
Yes, but
Eddie,
before that, we get a scene at breakfast where Jenna and Henry walk down. Both the parents are on phones. Everything's quiet. They ask what happens, and Mr. Hope is just like, Clay Boone got in an accident. I feel really bad for the guy who caused it, because Bill Boone will not let that go. Bill Boone's going to be a big problem for him.
Yep, so then we cut to the sheriff with Eddie, a guy he arrested, who he says got drunk the other night at a local bar and then must have been involved in the hit and run. And to this, Deputy Holst is like, okay, but do we have his truck? Like,
well, first she's like, Eddie, I didn't know you lived in the trailer park. Before Eddie starts to say something, the sheriff's like, his mother lives there. And it's like hurriedly taking Eddie past Anna Holst. And she's like, well, what about his truck? Is it an impound? Can I take a look? And the sheriff says, it's a hit and run. We don't need the car. It's good. Everything's closed.
Yep. On their way to school, Jenna tries to talk to Henry about last night, and Henry just goes, just forget about last night. Okay, forget about the entire thing.
Yeah.
It never happened.
And then at lunch, Towns sits at the table. Henry's out again, and he starts talking, and Henry decides to try to explain the weird seizure jump thing to him.
And in the background, Patty is collecting donations to get flowers for Clay, because he's such a nice guy and doesn't deserve this.
Yeah. And before Henry can actually explain anything to Towns, Patty walks up asking for donations. It's really awkward between all three of them, and then Towns puts some money in the box, and Henry's like, I don't have cash. I would if I could, though. And that's the end of that scene.
Yeah, so she kind of like attempted to tell Towns about the teleportation, but really all it came out was that she had another seizure. Like that's all that Towns came to understand.
Yeah. And then we go back to Henry's room where Mr. Hope, Thomas, is looking around her room, and he reaches under the bed and finds what looks like a piece of the broken glass/plastic.
The plastic that goes over a headlight, yeah.
And he already has 2 other pieces, and he has a third. So he's looking at the floor to see if he sees any more, and he sees some scratches leading to a small half door on the side of the wall.
An attic access.
Yes. And he opens it, and there's 2 chunks of truck door.
He's then distracted from this by knocks at the front door.
Mm-hmm. So he goes down, and it is
Deputy Hulse.
Yes. And she wants to know if Cleo's home because she wants to talk to her about the fact that the call about Clay came from Henry's phone.
Supposedly.
Yeah. And Tom is like, that's not possible. She was here all night, sitting right there on the couch. And the cop is like, the voice really sounded like her. And he's like, no, she was here all night.
So then, at school, Henry is approached by Clay's brother, Lucas.
Goon.
Because he knows that Clay took her car, and he figures that means she was with him the night before.
And that they must have been pretty close if he was willing to steal her car for him.
Which, not true,
her
in the
car
slightest.
For her, yeah.
They've had...
1 actual interaction.
Prior to the attempted rape scene, 2 conversations in the entire show.
Yeah. Henry's like, no, I don't really know anything. And takes off to Jenna's car, hops in and tells Jenna to take off. So they do.
And then Lucas chases them. Him chasing them leads to Jenna losing control of her car and spinning out.
Yeah, because he's actively pulled up alongside them on a small 2-lane country road and is pulling closer to them when another car comes barreling down. So he swerves away from it, causing them to swerve because he's so close to the back end of their car. Jenna spins out, almost hits a fence, doesn't, ends up still spinning out on the road, but facing him. So Henry's like, Jenna, go, I'll handle this.
Go home, get help.
And she climbs out of the car and walks to talk to Lucas.
And he's like, why'd you run? I just wanted to have a conversation. She's like, well, we're having a conversation now.
He's like, well, I know you were the last one to see Clay. She's like, no. He's like, are you trying to bullshit? And she's like, no, I wasn't with him. I don't know what you're talking about.
He doesn't believe her. So he attempts to push her into his car, but she fights back. He's like, fuck this.
So he kidnaps her and puts her in the trunk of his car. And then turns up his music so people can't hear her scream and pound on the roof of his trunk.
He then takes her to Boone's Automotive where he pulls into the garage.
Now, I would say here, most cars, especially even the one he has with the model it is, there are ways to open trunks from the inside in case you ever get put inside of one.
Yeah, it's a Mustang, and it's like a mid-2000s model Mustang.
Yeah, it's like 2010-ish, a little later.
Well.
And so it should have an emergency release latch inside of it, but because he's involved in drug smuggling, it's entirely possible that they did remove that.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there in case you ever end up inside of someone's trunk. There's generally a latch near the opening spot that you can open from the inside. And if that doesn't work, kick out the rear tail light. Just fun things you should know.
Also, the very back of the trunk is just the back of the back seats.
And most of them can be opened from the inside.
Or kicked through because they're fabric.
Yeah. Older cars kick through. Most modern cars, there's a latch on the back seat in the seating area where you can lay it down. And there's normally one on the back side of it as well that you can access to lay it down.
But he gets to Boone's Automotive, he pulls the car into the garage and then gets out of the car and gives everybody the rest of the night off. He's like, get out of here now, leave.
And spends a lot of time in this little scene, which is longer than it needs to be, but it fills runtime, yelling at workers to leave because they're walking too slow.
He then gets ready to go open the trunk and he's like,
yelling at her like, are you ready to fucking talk now, basically?
Nothing's going to interrupt us now, da-da-da-da-da. And she starts to panic and starts to seize, and then the trunk kind of crumbles in on itself. And then it springs open.
Yep.
And she's gone.
And he's just like, what the fuck?
This jumps her back to her room, the only place she's apparently able to jump to at this point.
Yes, but we don't follow her, actually. We cut to the house where we see Jenna pulling up, who runs in screaming for her dad, doesn't find anyone, and goes to walk up the stairs just as Henry walks down them.
Yep. Then we finally cut back to the opening iceberg.
Yep.
Where Keegan-Michael Key
is suffering from extreme exposure. His feet are blackened and dead. His fingers and hands are dying. His face, the area around it that has wounds, has darkened. His eyes are covered in snow and starting to freeze. His eyelashes and his eyebrows.
And he's just crawling along the iceberg until he finds what is essentially a mass grave. A bunch of dead people who have frozen to death on this iceberg.
And we pull out from the shot and we see the jumper from before in a coat and beanie just staring at him, who then jumps, gets into a warm shower.
He jumps back to his house, apartment, gets in a warm shower, gets out.
We see he has a massive scar across his lower back.
Yep. And then he gets out of the shower, approaches a bedroom. In the bedroom is his wife and child.
And they're French.
And she knows about the iceberg. It's French?
Yeah, they're speaking French.
Okay.
And she asks him if things are handled. And he's like, it'll all be over with soon. I promise.
I'm realizing right now that we didn't say what episode 1's title was.
Yeah.
Episode 1 is entitled Pilot.
Yes.
Apologies that you had to wait 30 plus minutes to get to the episode title.
Yes, and that is the end of this episode.
That is the end of this episode.
So Josh, thoughts on Impulse, episode 1, Pilot?
It's good. It's very intriguing. I enjoy it a lot. Like, the setup is definitely it's definitely an improvement from the previous YouTube science fiction show that we reviewed.
Agreed.
Lifeline. But part of that is also because it has a full 45-minute runtime instead of 22 minutes an episode.
Yeah.
Additionally, it's already set in a universe I know I like.
Yeah.
And it's using the knowledge you already have of the universe from having seen Jumper or read the books. I haven't read the books, I've only seen the movie. And then kind of drip feeding you.
Yeah.
So that you get more and more invested in it. Also, it does feel a lot like a CW drama, and I am
a sucker for those.
The target market. Yeah. I am.
Though I would say all the acting from almost all the characters is half a step above most CW dramas.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I am the target market for CW dramas. I am a teenage girl.
This is very true. I would agree with basically everything you said.
Oh, you're also a teenage girl?
No, I agree that you are a teenage girl. Those are I statements, bud. So I would agree with basically everything you said. My biggest complaint is still the random camera tilt and shaky cam that felt unnecessary and I don't like. That's really personal preference, though I feel like the camera tilt when Clayton got out isn't. The only actual reason would be to mark it as foretelling or foreshadowing for later. He jumps out of the car, his feet lands, the earth tilts. Depending on genre, it's either because of some romantic importance or big life importance. Either way, that is true, but it doesn't feel like it's done super well, if that's the intent there. It's jarring, and I don't like it.
Fair. The episode also ends with a card for RAIN, the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network.
Yes.
Because the show does deal with a pretty heavy topic of sexual assault.
Yep.
So, yeah, if you need that access to that, the National Sexual Assault Hotline is there for you.
We'll put the notes in the comments, in our show notes. But after episode 1, would you watch more?
I mean, technically I've already watched more.
Fair. So the answer is yes?
The answer is yes.
Fair enough. I would also watch more.
I watched the entire first season based on the strength of the first episode initially, so, I mean...
Fair enough.
And I guess I actually watched the first episode based off of...
the strength of the movie, which wasn't very strong.
I love Jumper.
It's a very fun movie. I also quite enjoy it. I will recognize easily, though, it is not a great movie.
It's got a cool power system and world going on.
Yeah, and it definitely feels like it and Push should be the same World Series, but it's not.
They're definitely not.
Yeah, sad. Anyways, though, on to episode 2, State of Mind.
Hey, you got the episode title before the review this time.
I did. I left it to you last time and you didn't do it, so I've taken your job.
I got spun off talking about,
the book where people go to a parallel world and steal its resources?
I got spun off talking about Wild Side.
Fair. Which, by the way, the moment you were, set in Texas teenagers and it's called Wild Side, my mind just went to every fucking 80s movie with, a gang of kids. Just throwing that out there. Based by its name and its very first sentence intro that you gave me, I was like, oh, this is an 80s movie. They're going to be a biker gang, but not actually bikers. They're going to be a motocross gang, and they're going to go against corrupt cops.
He's written 10 full-length novels.
Yeah.
Steven Gould has. 5 of them are set in the Jumper series.
Yeah.
The other 5 are Wild Side, Green War, Helm, Blind Waves, and Seventh Sigma. All 5 non-Jumper books are... in part ecological apocalypse novels.
Nice.
About a future where not taking care of the environment leads to human destruction.
I mean, he's not wrong, so.
We have Wild Side, the one about a portal where you... pristine world.
Yeah.
We have Green War, which the only thing I've seen here is the plot deals with deep sea energy and environmental issues. After Green War, we have Helm, a novel based around mind control and the destruction of Earth's ecosystem.
Delightful.
Then we have Blind Waves, which is primarily about melting ice caps and investigations into violence against refugees. And then we have Seventh Sigma, another novel set in the American Southwest, but about insect-sized self-replicating robots that eat and destroy everything to self-replicate. Basically War of the Worlds, but human-made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So State of Mind now?
Yeah, State of Mind now, I guess.
We open with a karaoke bar in Japan. We are following a hostess down a hallway of the private rooms to a more open area that seems to have a public karaoke stage, which feels a bit rare, but not unheard of. And as we're going through, the camera does slightly focus on a guy at the bar. We don't actually stick with him. Instead, we go to the Japanese businessmen, it seems, who are singing Proclaimers.
I would walk 1,000.
I would walk 500 miles, and I would walk 500 more.
Yeah. To be the man that walked 1,000 miles to be at your door.
They finish singing. The crowd claps.
But they didn't do the badup bubs.
Yeah, because we got there too late. And
we missed the best part of the song.
Yeah. One of the men leaves the stage. We follow him. He walks out of the bar, grabs a drink, and then starts to walk down the hallway that the hostess just came down.
And then suddenly he is on top of a building because somebody touched him and jumped.
Yeah, we see a guy grab his arm from the side where one of the private rooms is.
And it's the man from episode 1.
Yes. And the guy's immediately like, what are you doing? And the guy's like, how you doing, doc? And the doctor recognizes him because apparently he's a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And is me like, I'm so sorry. I didn't know what they were going to do. I'm so sorry. And the jumper takes him and forces his back against the ledge and pushing him over. And he's like, it doesn't matter. I have a family now. I got to deal with things.
And then there's a high-pitched sonic noise.
Mm-hmm.
All noises are sonic. Yeah. That was stupid. There's a high-pitched whine that disrupts what the jumper's doing. It seems to have more effect on him than the doctor.
Yes. And the camera pans over and we see the guy we briefly saw at the bar. Now here he's an older white man, graying hair, and he's holding a small device. It looks kind of like a remote, but he's holding it entirely vertically in his hand, and there's some red lights on it. And it appears to be emitting the sound.
And in his other hand, he has a gun.
Yes. And the jumper says a name. I don't remember what he says. And these two proceed to start fighting.
And the jumper manages to get away from this guy.
Knock the gun out of his hand.
Knock the gun out of his hand. He does a short jump to grab the doctor and then tackles them both over the edge of the building.
Yes.
Creates some separation between him and the doctor as they fall, and he jumps away as the doctor splats on the ground of Tokyo.
Yep, and then we get the opening scene again.
I'm assuming Tokyo. It could be anywhere. It could be any city in Japan, technically. Yeah. We didn't see, like, Tokyo Tower or...
Yeah.
So it could be any city.
It looked like it may have been Osaka, just based off, like, all the large signage, but I didn't see the Glico Running Man, so I don't fucking know.
Basically, there was no actual landmarks in this scene, so it's impossible to tell what city in Japan they were in.
Yeah, one of the big ones.
He arrives back at his house.
Oh, yeah, we don't get the opening here. He arrives back at his house.
He arrives back at his house, and he rushes inside, and he tells his wife that they need to go right now. She is, like, currently making tea.
Yeah, and she doesn't question. She's immediately like, okay, turns off the stove, grabs a few things.
No, she doesn't.
Oh, I thought she did.
The final scene of this room will show the tea kettle still on.
Yeah. So Scramble seems to grab a few things, and then they rush over to their son, who is coloring.
And he tells his son, it's time to do the magic trick.
Throw a blanket over themselves. He's like, do you remember the magic words? And his son's like, yeah, 1, 2, 3, fly. And the guy jumps them.
And them and the blanket disappear, and we get a shot of the room sans people with a tea kettle on the stove getting ready to go make the tea kettle noise. You know the noise. I'm not going to attempt to make it.
And then we have the credit, and then we pick up with Henry falling onto her bed.
Yeah.
And we're literally picking up the last episode from Henry's perspective just before the end. So she's, again, massively confused, stands up and walks out of her room, starts to head down the stairs when she sees Jenna. And Jenna's just like, how'd you get back here? What's going on? Did Lucas drop you off here? And she's like, no, I was in his trunk, and then I was here, and I don't know what's going on. And Jenna's just like, okay, cool. We should call the cops. And then you're like, no, I have no idea how to explain this. I can't even explain this to you. Why would we call the cops?
So then Henry's mom shows up and starts honking outside. I say Henry's mom shows up. Henry's mom pulls up in a car outside, starts honking.
Yeah.
Henry apparently has an appointment.
And Jenna's just like, okay, well, if we're not going to tell the cops, you should at least tell your mom about the thing with Clay. And Henry doesn't really answer and just leaves.
We then come back to Boone's Automotive, the garage specifically, where Lucas is examining the trunk of his car. He's like, what the fuck happened? Where'd she go? He's like looking underneath the trunk. He's like...
And then Bill Boone walks in. He's like, what the fuck are you doing? And then he notices the trunk. He's like, did you get in a fucking car accident?
He's like, no, I found a girl.
She was with Clay. I put her in the trunk. He's like, you fucking kidnapped a girl. He's like, well, she's not here. And she's like, she knows something. He's like, I don't give a fuck about a girl. I already know what did this. I already know what caused this. It was our partners in the north who were pissed off we lost a truck. They don't give a shit about the girl. And Lucas immediately is like, okay, well then I can help. I can handle this. He's like, no, I'm already on it.
So we then come back to Cleo and Henry. Cleo's taking Henry to her appointment and talking about how her boss, Greg, with 3 Gs. Can you believe the audacity of that man? 3 Gs.
G-R-E-G-G. That's how you know there's already something wrong with him.
But he would only give her an hour off work. But
and
he should know how important this is. He has kids.
And they were just seeing all these red lights. And Henry starts to disassociate and remember the incident with Clay.
Yes. At the doctor's, she tries to explain that she's had new seizures, and she's trying
she says.
Trying to explain the new symptoms where she blacks out and wakes up in a totally different place, is missing time.
She wants to know if touch can, like, trigger it. And she tries to explain, like, unwanted touch without saying unwanted touch or explain that she was sexually assaulted.
And she's like, also, like...
claustrophobia, maybe?
The doctor's like, there's no link between these seizures and claustrophobia or triggers. but mesial temporal sclerosis, or MTS, can create blackouts and time loss.
And cause seizures.
Which would explain the new symptoms that you're presenting.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you would think the doctor could explain that some seizures can be caused by increases in anxiety, and while being touched or claustrophobia may not be exact triggers, they could be causing you anxiety, which could be causing your seizures, but nope, no mention of it. Instead, he's like, don't worry, we're going to get you on some new medicine, and everything should be better.
So after the doctors, Cleo's dropping Henry off to pick up her medicine. Before she does, she's like, you could always come to the diner, get a snack, spend time with me like we used to.
Yeah, and she's like, look, the pharmacy's got to close soon. I need to go. And Mom's like, okay, well, just remember, Thomas will take you home. And this is the first time we get Mr. Hope's name, and I had no idea who the fuck they were talking about.
Specifically, she says Thomas will pick you up, which he does not.
Yeah, she does say pick up. That's what I put in my notes, and then I thought I was wrong.
You weren't wrong.
Okay.
So Henry goes to the pharmacy, wanders around town a little bit, and then goes to the bowling alley where Thomas apparently works.
Well, she's walking there. She takes her medicine, pulls out of the bag, goes to take some, and it's apparently like right outside of a church when this is happening, and like glares/scoffs at something we don't see on the screen for a moment, wads up the paper bag that her medicine came in, and throws it in that direction. And then as we pull out and she's walking, we see that it's a church that has a sign, "We're praying for you, Clay." Mm-hmm. And then she ends up at the bowling alley.
I missed that. Then she gets to the bowling alley, and when she does, Thomas is like, look, I got a pin stuck in aisle 8.
Lane 8.
Lane 8, aisle 8, same difference. I got a pin stuck in lane 8, got to fix that before I can go, but when I get that unstuck, I can take you home right away, no problem.
So he's working on getting that unstuck. She's standing there next to him, and he's like, hey, can you hand me this tool? Blah, 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 blah. And then he's like, hey, so Officer Hulse came by. She wanted to know about you calling in Henry Clay's accident. And she's like, I didn't do that. He's like, yeah, that's what I told her. I told her you were home all night. And I also got rid of those
car parts you were keeping in the attic.
Yeah. And she looks kind of scared about what he's going to say to him. She's like, look, I don't know what happened, but Bill Boone is not going to let whatever happened to Clay lie. He's a dangerous man. He'll do whatever he thinks he needs to do for his family. Be careful. Be careful around him.
We then cut to the police station where Deputy Hulse is like, look, I tracked that 911 call and I know it came from Henry's phone.
Yep. And Eddie's phone wasn't anywhere around there, didn't ping off the cell towers there. Plus, there's a bunch of eyewitnesses saying they saw him at the lodge that night.
He never went anywhere except the bar, and she's like, I took it all myself to get all this information. And he's like, well, you need to stop that.
I appreciate your not audacity, but it's basically what he's like, your gumption. You're a real Angela Lansbury.
No, Audacity is the program you're staring at.
Yeah, you're a real Angela Lansbury. Though there was, I think, I found it a slightly amusing interaction when she first walks into the room. The sheriff's complaining about how he has to eat a salad because cholesterol and everything. He's like, but this fucking salad won't mix in. And she's like, if you want your ranch sprout, just put your lid on it and shake the bowl. He's like, wait, what, really?
That works? You could just shake the bowl?
And the ranch will disperse throughout the salad? That's wild. But then he tells her, yeah, don't worry about it. I said the case is closed, so it's closed.
Yeah. And then we come back to the house where Henry, Cleo, Thomas,
He also tells the officer she should be making friends, because friends can really pay off in this town.
Yeah. Henry goes up to her room, listens to music. She pulls out a joint to smoke, and then grabs her backpack, and then finds the keys to her now stolen car in her backpack.
Yep.
Proceeds to have a tiny bit of a panic, puts the joint down, and rushes out of her house.
Though before she went to her room, Jenna did try to talk to her, and she did learn that she's on new medicine, and Henry's like, it's fine, everything's going to be great then. Basically, Jenna still tries to see if Henry said anything to her mother about Clay, and that's why Jenna's going to smoke. She's stressed, and she basically just tells Jenna, I liked it more when we didn't talk. And then she goes to return her stolen car.
Yes. So, in an attempt to cover her theft, she goes to the trailer park, gets the car back, drives it to Boone Auto,
parks it back in the spot it was in,
and then breaks into the offices
by forcing up a garage door
to return the key and pink slip. While she's in the offices, she catches the front desk attendant, who I think is named Iris.
She is.
Having sex with Bill.
While they're listening/watching a Bill Boone automotive commercial.
Yes. Henry hides during this point, and then as Bill and Iris are leaving, Bill pays her to quote-unquote help with rent.
Yeah.
But, it feels like he's paying for sex.
Yeah, and Iris says she doesn't need it. But he insists she takes it, because he wants to take care of her.
So Henry manages to get in and out, return the pink slip without getting caught.
Yep.
Back at home, laying in her bed, she has more flashbacks of her assault at the hands of Clay, but this flashback has the power inverted, and she's the one pinning Clay down.
Yes, and he's not disagreeing. It's kind of a what if the situation had been consensual.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next morning, we see her taking her new meds, and she gets in Jenna's car, and we have some fairly upbeat music playing as we see basically a little montage of her school day up until lunch.
She's happier, she's smiling, she's engaging with people around her.
And then lunch happens, and the music starts to fade out a bit. We had a lot of chatter from the lunchroom, and then the music completely stops when we hear Patty start talking about how it's so horrible about what happened.
Clay is such a good person. He doesn't deserve to be in the comas he's in. And the spinal injury, da-da-da.
And Jenna's like, he cheated on you a lot. And Patty's like, Jenna, he's in the hospital.
So,
and then
Henry's sitting by herself again.
Yeah, new music cuts in here, too. That's more tension heavy.
Thomas approaches her again, Thomas Towns, and sits with her, saying that the principal wants to speak with him about what happened in Dr. Gibson's class.
Well, he says what happened about the incident the other day.
In Dr. Gibson's class.
And don't worry, we need to get our story straight. I'm not going to tell anything. She starts to panic for a moment, and then he mentions Dr. Gibson's class.
Yeah.
Because she thought he was talking about the incident she started to mention.
Yeah. And she's like, his name's Mr. Gibson.
Yeah. And she's like, what do you mean get our story straight? She's like, about the fact that you're psychic. And she's like, I'm not psychic.
He's
I didn't do anything.
Despite my obvious middle-class upbringing and the amount of windfall it could bring me to turn you into the United States government, I would never rat you out for your telekinesis.
Yeah. And she's like, okay.
And she's like, but we have to have our story straight because this is the start of your story. This is either...
There's no start of any story. I don't have superpowers or anything. He's like, this classic pessimism is like always right before this superhero becomes a hero. And she's like, she gets up to him and he's like, well, it's still 50-50. You could either be a superhero or a supervillain.
And then she gets up and walks away. She's like,
yeah,
done with this. So Eddie, the guy that the cops arrested, is being interrogated by Bill Boone in the police interrogation room. Bill, obviously, we saw him talking with the sheriff earlier, but he obviously has the local police in his pocket.
Yeah, and Eddie's just like, Bill, I wasn't involved in anything that happened to your son. And Bill's like, yeah, I know, but it's still your fault. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, I know who did this. It's our associates who are pissed that you dumped an entire truckload of their product into the sewer. And Eddie's like, the Border Patrol was searching everything. He's like, yeah, because you lost your fucking passport. And Eddie's like, I just want to do anything to help. Bill's like, yeah, that's why you're here.
No, Eddie says, I just want to make this right.
Yeah, and Bill says, that's why you're here.
Yeah. So we cut to Clay in the hospital then. He has a bunch of cards from people.
Well, before we leave the police station, we see Anna Hulse noticing Bill and the sheriff talking, and she seems suspicious, and then we cut to Clay.
Yeah, so Clay is in his hospital bed, a bunch of cards. His brother Lucas is visiting. While Lucas is visiting, trying to talk to him in case he can hear him, Clay's phone goes off, which is bullshit.
Yeah.
It's not on a charger. He's been in the hospital multiple days now. That phone is dead.
Yeah, but Lucas uses his brother's thumb to unlock it and is going through his messages. And he's like, oh, wow, you're really fucking popular. Oh, shit, Patty still messages you? Poor girl. And then he pulls up the contacts and is looking for Henrietta. Doesn't get anything. Searches Henry and also still doesn't get anything.
So as Henry is walking along, coming home from school, Bill Boone pulls up next to her.
In her car,
yeah. He thanks her for calling in Clay's accident.
And then they must have been really close.
And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, you don't have to play it off. I understand. He's like, what are you doing right now? I need your help with something.
He's like, I'm going home. He's like,
I have a bunch of homework. I can't actually be doing anything else.
Yeah. He's like, well, I really need your help. And she just says, no, walks away.
And he's like, you had been close with Clay. Why else would he help you steal this car?
So she stops and eventually gets in the vehicle. And he's driving. He's like, look. And she's like, I should really let my mom know.
She gets in the car and we cut to a different scene.
Do we?
Yeah. We jump to the diner where Cleo works. Thomas has swung by to help to bring dinner to her because, in his words, the diner's food sucks. So he brought Alfredo or something, fresh garlic bread, beers.
Alcohol. Yeah. And they start talking, and Cleo immediately is like, this is super sweet. And then immediately is like, I'm just really worried about Henry. She
just starts freaking out, yeah.
She's like, she seems really optimistic that this new medicine is going to help make everything better.
But WebMD says MTS diagnoses are degenerative and may require brain surgery.
Can be degenerative and can get worse, may require brain surgery. And like, what's going on? What if something gets worse? And Thomas cuts her off and he's like, everything's going to be fine. Even if things get worse, we're here for her. She's in good hands right now.
We'll handle it.
Yeah. And then the line, though, is she's in good hands right now.
Yeah.
And then we cut back to her in a car with Bill Boone.
Good hands.
The right hands.
So Bill Boone driving Henry further and further out of town, and she's getting more and more uncomfortable.
Yeah. And she's like, I should really call my mom. And he's like, that's fine. Don't worry. I won't say anything about you and Clay. I understand what it was like to be a teenager, smoking, having sex. It's fine. I won't mention a thing. And she is immediately uncomfortable about the implication that anything that happened in that car was consensual.
He then swerves off the highway and down onto a country road,
while saying, shortcut.
He also spends his time telling a story about Clay breaking his arm.
About him being an abusive piece of shit father.
Yeah. Clay broke his arm when he was younger, and the bone was like protruding from the skin. Clay, like a normal child,
a 9-year-old,
crying, in pain, in tears, and his father stops the car, both here for real with Henry, and in the story stops the car, and then tells Clay, we're not going to the hospital until you look at the bone. You gotta look at the bone, or we're not going.
He does.
Starts crying again. And Bill's like, I then told him that that's what we all are. We're all just flesh bags with bones inside. And it's a rare opportunity a man gets to see what he's actually made of.
What really makes a man a man is what he basically does. And he's like, and then he stopped crying. Because at that age, he got it. He understood. Yeah, at first he was looking at me much like you are. And she is visibly terrified by this man who has basically forcibly abducted her with blackmail. And is now driving her off into the middle of fucking nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, but he stopped crying. So we went to the hospital with him. And he starts driving again.
And he has taken her to meet the men he suspects are responsible for Clay's accident.
Yes. Apparently they are a group of Mennonites who are grabbing cars for him.
Yeah, he believes that she saw who attacked Clay and is hoping that she'll recognize someone here.
And she's trying to explain she didn't see anything. She doesn't know. He's like, you know. I know you know.
Honestly.
You don't need to be scared. I'm here.
All she had to do was be like, I was out with my sister. We saw a beat up truck, like a damaged truck. I got out of the car to see what was going on, saw Clay, and called 911.
Yeah. Or even then, because she has a medical diagnosis that says, hey, she loses time, could be like, yeah, no, I literally had a seizure. When I woke up, that's what was fucking going on.
Yeah.
She has 2 pretty good ounce and uses neither of them. Instead, they pull up. He tells her to put up her hood and to look at all the guys and see if she recognizes anyone.
Yeah, she tells him that she didn't see anything, but he continues to pressure her until she identifies one of the men.
One of the ones he suggests, obviously.
As Clay's attacker. On the way back from the Knights, as they're blowing down the highway, Hulse has somebody pulled over for speeding, and she sees Henry with Bill.
Yep.
Back at home,
Jenna is listening to some sort of lecture about genetic mutation causing disease in humans. When Henry gets home, she hears her get in. So Jenna walks into her room to ask where she's been. And Henry is looking for something to light her joint. And Jenna is trying to get her to talk about everything. And Henry's just like, get the fuck out. Leave me alone. And Jenna's like, no, you need someone. I'm not gonna go.
Jenna is actively a good friend / sister figure here.
And she's like, look, we'll do whatever you need to do. I will help in any way I can. So they sit together and they smoke.
You can't be alone right now.
Yeah. They sit together and smoke.
Jenna's never been high before, but the two bond. Henry's room used to apparently be Jenna's mother's workshop.
She was sewing and she sewed and stuff. Jenna never learned. Shortly after her mother died, she immediately regretted it. And apparently, while her mother was still in her deathbed, dead now, Jenna literally threw up on her deathbed. And her mother.
So they start talking about Clay and what he did. Mm-hmm. Henry confides that he made her wake up and that she actually hopes he dies.
Yeah.
And that makes her a terrible person.
And that's kind of fucked up. And Jenna's like, no, it's not fucked up.
And no matter what actually happened, even if you can't remember, you need to make sure
he's in the hospital.
You need to make sure he doesn't get away with it.
Yeah. So then we cut back to Cleo at the diner. Seems to possibly be the next morning because that's lie down.
Mm-hmm. It's the next day.
And Anna is there, Anna Hulse, the cop, and she wants to talk to Cleo about Henry and Clay. And Cleo agrees to.
Then we cut to school where Henry where some teacher or somebody's come up to Henry and been like, you need to go to the principal's office. On her way there, she runs into Thomas and he's like, I just went. They didn't suspect a thing.
And she's like, okay, wait, they? And she looks in through a giant glass window into the principal's office and sees that the teacher will also be in the meeting, Mr. Shelby Gibson.
We then cut to the hospital where Clay's monitors start going off and he is choking.
He's obviously waking up. If you know anything about this, the machines are going off because his heart's freaking the fuck out because he's waking up. And when people wake up with a tube down their throat, they generally choke on it. In the office with the principal and Mr. Gibson's giving his spiel. He says, the seizure was true. Oh, sorry. It starts with the principal addressing Henry. And she's like, look, we need to talk about it. I understand having a seizure at school must have been very troubling. And Henry goes to reply, and immediately Mr. Gibson's like, oh, it was very troubling for everyone involved. It was traumatic for everyone involved. But we got through it, and I think we should just put it all behind us, right? He's like, we got through it, but we have to admit that Henry is a disruptive force in class. And in fact, that's what led to the seizure to begin with. Yeah. And honestly, we should all just move on, move forward. And don't you agree, Henry? And Henry's like, we should just move on. Yeah. No, I don't think so. Because, and then she goes on, like, we should address the fact that the entire thing started with a teacher bullying a student with autism and unwarrantedly touching another student. Inappropriately grabbing a student. Yeah. And he's like, oh, what the fuck? No, this isn't bullshit. And she's like, and we should probably address the fact, like, should we even be wanting these types of role models here at the school, making us call him a doctor when he doesn't have a doctorate, lying about his achievements? And he's like, oh, fuck you, this shit again. And the principal interrupts him, and she's like, Don't worry about it. Appropriate action will be taken. You're dismissed, Henry. Thank you for your time. Shakes her hand and then just turns her gaze to stare directly at Gibson, who is now stone-faced staring at the wall, visibly pissed off.
So in the halls, after she leaves the principal office, she goes into the halls.
We got some happy music. She's smiling, walking through the hall.
And then phones are going off everywhere. And Jenna comes up to her and she's like, Clay woke up.
So then we cut to the bathroom where Henry has just finished throwing up in a sink and is now washing her face off from the sink water and starts having an anxiety attack. Can't breathe.
And Jenna followed her into the bathroom too.
And Jenna's like, hey, it's fine. And Henry's like, get the fuck back. Something's going on. I don't know what's happening.
The mirrors start shaking and then they start shattering.
The stall doors start crumpling down. And then Henry jumps back to her room where she proceeds to lay on the floor having an extreme panic and anxiety attack.
And flashbacks to the assault.
Mm-hmm.
But this time she reimagines the ending where he agrees to like back off and take her home.
Yeah.
That's the end of the episode. There's another panel advertising RAIN, the Rape, Abuse,
she sits
Incest
up,
National Network.
She does sit up, stare disassociatively off the screen, appears to struggle with not having a full breakdown again, and then the end of the episode ends on an audible choked sob from her.
That's the end of episode 2. Justice, would you watch more?
I would.
Impulse.
I would. I appreciate that while this is on a base level with the understanding of the world, ostensibly a superhero show, at least in the first episode.
And because it's a superhero show based around genetics and technically genetic engineering, this is a sci-fi show.
Yes. It's not focusing on that, at least in these first 3 episodes, and I would assume probably not for the entirety of this first season.
It's very grounded sci-fi.
It's very, very grounded. I appreciate that.
A lot of what Gould writes is grounded in reality.
Yep. And so I would definitely watch more. I do like its base material that I'm aware of. I think that the show itself has set things up well. And I am, not gonna lie, I'm vaguely intrigued to see how the fuck this jumper coincides with the plot. Because he's obviously going to, and so will the Knights or whatever they're fucking called.
Mm-hmm.
Who, that guy...
with the gun and the whining device.
Yeah. Is part of an order that hunts down jumpers, basically.
Yeah.
They either then enslave them or kill them. Or do experiments on them.
Yeah, and I would also watch more, obviously. I really like the universe that Gould created with Jumper.
I would agree.
And Impulse is set in that same universe.
The only thing he could do better is find the person who wrote the Push books, because I think those also start off as a book before movies, and then collab to bring their worlds together.
There has to be more of us who think Push and Jump are essentially like companion pieces.
They should exist in the same universe.
They also deal with a lot of the same themology.
Yeah, and literally, like, the only superpower that we don't get in the Push series is people who can teleport.
I mean, there's also not people who can fly or shoot lasers from their eyes or...
Yeah, fair.
But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like, teleporting fits right in with the Push.
Yeah, because in Push, people have more grounded powers, by which I mean they're not over the top, super obvious to notice most of the fucking time. They're more stealth powers, I guess. Things that can be used without so much noticing, and teleportation is one of those that can be used much more sneakily, and it's like one of the few we don't really get. I guess that and like invisibility in the Push movies.
In the Push movies, there are movers who can move objects and people by altering gravity.
Mm-hmm.
Pushers who can implant thoughts, memories, and emotions into others.
Yeah.
Watchers who can see the future.
Yeah.
Bleeders who can emit sonic vibrations that rupture blood vessels.
Yeah.
Shifters who could temporarily change the appearance of objects using light manipulation.
Yeah.
They make illusions and can also kind of turn invisible. Stitchers who can heal people.
Mm-hmm.
Shadows who can shield people from the detection of other psychic abilities. Sniffers who can track psychic powers in people. And wipers who can erase memories both temporarily and permanently.
It's all much more subtle. Like, teleportation would fit in there.
Yeah, teleportation fits. But yeah, I would watch more 100%.
Agreed.
And I now know there's a second season that I haven't seen. So in addition to having an entirely new show for you to watch, there's an entirely new season for me to watch. And I also have to watch all of the first season because I don't remember it.
Fair. But I think that's the end of this flight.
There was a little bit more I wanted to talk about.
Specifically
in regards to the obvious evolution in their production. Like,
they
went from Corridor Digital doing Lifeline, which was a small production company already.
Yeah.
And like you can see the difference in the budgets between Lifeline and Impulse just in like the way the show is produced.
Yes.
But also licensed music and...
I would say acting talent, but that's not necessarily based upon budget.
Yeah, but also like with the involvement of Keegan-Michael Key as an actual character.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not an actual character. He had about as much screen time as The Rock, I guess.
But being involved in it at all. But hey, that's, again, like The Rock. But given the time period, Keegan-Michael Key had a larger career at this point in time than The Rock did, at least as far as films and media go.
I wouldn't necessarily say that in 2017, 2018, but what I would say...
is that people knew Keegan-Michael Key more.
Is that there is an obviously larger budget just based on like the locations of shooting. Like, a lot of Lifeline is definitely shot on like soundstage and in like a box essentially.
Yeah, we don't get a lot of street shots because those involve money to shut down a street.
Whereas this show obviously has more outdoor shots and more location shots, and that just screams a different in quality and production quality, which tells me that at the time that they were producing Impulse, YouTube believed that they could make these shows.
Yeah.
They obviously didn't hold that belief very long because before 2021, the show would be canceled, and so would the next show we're reviewing.
Yeah.
Which
and
is
so would
Origin.
a number of other YouTube original shows.
But at this point, YouTube believed in this as a revenue stream, as a way to make money, as a way to produce content.
Yeah.
And it's very obvious that they were trying.
Yeah, I would agree.
But yeah, otherwise I think we're done.
If you would like to tell us about more YouTube original things, about your thoughts on YouTube original creations, or talk about any variety of sci-fi shows that most people aren't aware of, or fuck it, anything else, you can do so by reaching out to us through a myriad of ways, such as our email that you can find by going to copilotsreview@gmail.com. Well, sending a message to that.
But you can actually find it at copilotsreview.simplecast.com, which also has links to our Blue Sky, YouTube, Patreon, Twitter, that hellscape.
I think that one doesn't work anymore.
Okay. But yeah, links
and on
to all that are
those
there.
sites, we are Copilots Review, at Copilots Review, or whatever search symbol and then Copilots Review. I think they're all ats. I think ats the
Blue Sky
one.
is actually copilotsreview.bsky.
Yeah, but you can find it by searching Copilots Review on Blue Sky.
Yeah.
But that's all from us this time. Thank you for flying with us, and please fly again soon.